Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So one of my, I have a Facebook site called the Progressive Soapbox. And all of the members, for the most part, put in stories and kind of news information and everything else. There was a conversation with Reid, where Reid emphatically said, no, the uranium deal never took place. Literally, emphatically, the guy kind of brought it up to her. She gets really kind of animated, pulls out Snopes, and essentially said, Snopes said it never took place. Reid doesn't know what she's talking about. This is New York Times. Unless she's saying that the New York Times is lying, Reid doesn't know what she's talking about. Cash flow to Clinton Foundation amid Russian uranium deal. You don't say. You don't say. The headline on the website provider trumpeted Vladimir Putin's latest coup. Wait a minute, and this is in April 23rd, 2015, written by Joe Beckler and Mike McIntyre. So either these people are lying in this particular story, or Reid lied on national television. It's amazing. The headline of the website provider trumpeted Vladimir Putin's latest coup. Its nationalistic fervor recalling an era where its precursors served as the official mouthpiece of the Kremlin. Russian nuclear energy conquers the world. An article in January 2013 detailed how Russian Atomic Energy Agency, Rostom, had taken over a Canadian company with uranium mining rights stretching from Central Asia to the American West. The deal made Rostom one of the largest uranium producers and brought Mr. Putin closer to his goal of controlling much of the global uranium supply chain. The untold story behind the story is one that involves not just the Russian president, but also a former American president and a woman who would like to be the next one. He's talking about Bill and Hillary Clinton. At the heart of the tale are several men, leaders of the Canadian mining industry, who have been major donors to the charitable endeavors of former President Bill Clinton and his family. Members of the group built, financed, and eventually sold off to the Russians, a company that will become known as Uranium One. Beyond mines in Kazakhstan that are among the most lucrative in the world, the sale gave Russians control of 1/5 of all uranium production capacity in the United States. That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. Since uranium is considered a strategic asset with implications for national security, the deal had to be approved by a committee composed of representatives from the United States government agencies. Among the agencies that eventually signed off was the State Department, headed by Miss Hillary Clinton. As the Russians gradually assumed control of Uranium One, in 3 separate transactions from 2009 to 2013, Canadian records show a flow of cash made its way to the Clinton Foundation. Uranium One's chairman used his family foundation to make 4 donations totaling $2.35 million. Those contributions were not publicly disclosed by the Clintons, despite an agreement Ms. Clinton had struck with the Obama White House to publicly identify all donors. Other people with ties to the company made donations as well. Think about that. So 1/5 of the uranium supply in the United States was sold off to the Russians. The Russians that supposedly have been the big bad boogeymans to our politics right now. The Hillary Clinton State Department sold off those rights, meaning saying, yes, this is okay, I'm approving this deal. At the same time, receiving a bunch of money in cash into the Clinton Foundation. You've seen me do many videos, but I've made this point where the Clinton Foundation began and the State Department end was a murky subject at best. Hillary Clinton was monetizing the State Department. She was getting money in the Clinton campaign and granting favors from the State Department. That's amazing. It wasn't like this wasn't known before the election, but this, I guess the point is, if you're going to be bashing Russia to this degree and you're going to say Russia did this, Russia did that, Vladimir Putin is this big threat and this enemy. It wasn't much of an enemy when these people were paying you off and you were approving uranium. That's amazing. Somebody needs to send this to Joy Reid. Somebody needs to send this to Joy Reid. This is amazing. And let's get worse. And shortly after the Russians announced their intentions to acquire a majority stake in Uranium One, Mr. Clinton received $500,000 for a Moscow speech from a Russian investment bank with ties to the Kremlin that was promoting the Uranium One stock. And shortly after the Russians announced their intention to acquire a majority stake in Uranium One, Mr. Clinton, Bill Clinton, received $500,000 for a Moscow speech from a Russian investment bank with ties to the Kremlin that was promoting the Uranium One stock. Here's money. Go out and do stuff. Your wife is going to approve this deal because she's in the State Department, and I'm going to give you $500,000. What the hell is Bill Clinton saying that's worth $500,000? The answer is nothing. It's payoff. It's payoff. Speeches are their way of essentially receiving money. The question is, who's giving them that money? And what are the things that the people giving them money getting in return for that money? I guarantee you it's not just the speech. At the time, both Rothschild and the United States government made promises intended to ease concerns about ceding control of the company's assets to the Russians. Well, that's just good sense. Those promises have been repeatedly broken, records show. The New York Times examination of the Uranium One deal is based on dozens of interviews, as well as a review of public records and security filings in Canada, Russia, and the United States. Some of the connections between Uranium One and the Clinton Foundations were unearthed by Peter Schweizer, a former fellow at the right-leaning Hoover Institution and author of the forthcoming book, Clinton Cash. Mr. Schweizer provided a preview of material in the book to the Times, which scrutinized this information and built upon its own reporting. That's damning. That's absolutely damning. I'm putting the link to the bottom so you can read the rest. This article is absolutely damning. They didn't care about seizing or about giving away a resource like that. They didn't care. They were getting paid to do a favor. There's a reason why we don't necessarily have foreign agencies paying people in our government. In her particular case, she found the loophole. I have this Clinton Foundation that is going to receive money from all these sources around the world, and being in the State Department, I can now grant favors to the people who are essentially giving me money. There is no way you can tell me that's not criminal. There is no way. If you're going to tell me how much of a crook Donald Trump is, and yes, he's probably is a crook, are you telling me this shit is legal? There's no way you're telling me that's legal. She is literally receiving money in the capacity of a private citizen and then granting favors from the United States State Department. Going so far as ceding that much uranium to the Russians, the boogeyman, the people who were supposed to be haunting our nightmares at night. It didn't haunt their nightmares when they were selling over all that uranium. Joy Reid is embarrassing. Did this happen or not? Did it happen or not? Either Joy Reid is lying or doesn't know what she's talking about, or the New York Times is lying. I'll put my trust in this particular article, in this particular research. It's amazing. That's amazing. I knew she was selling favors in the State Department in other situations like Saudi Arabia and weapons or something like that. This is worse. It's worse purely from the context of you're allowing somebody who you consider to be an enemy. I don't consider anybody my enemy. But in that case, people they consider to be their enemy, a large share of a resource that they use to make weapons. That's amazing. That's amazing. The Russians are coming, but she didn't necessarily mind giving the Russians all their uranium. That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm going to send this to Joy Reid. She needs to see this particular article. I saw her say that. And at the time, I didn't know enough about the Uranium One deal to know whether it was true or not. It was kind of this thing of, okay, she's being pretty emphatic that the Uranium One deal didn't take place, or whatever. And then I come across this article. And as you're reading through the article, it becomes pretty clear that the New York Times vetted the information, went through, it looks like with somewhat of a fine-tooth comb. This article is extraordinarily detailed. And they're giving you information literally about how money was taken in this hand and favors were given in this hand. Money was given to either Bill Clinton for speech, or it was given to Hillary Clinton and the Clinton Foundation. All of these sources, or many of these sources that were connected with that particular deal, was giving them money. And just so happened the State Department thought it was perfectly okay to cede over 1/5 of our nuclear or our uranium to Russia. Now, whether you think that's just a decent business deal or not, certainly feel a particular way about it. I mean, that feels weird, seeing as how much they're saying that the Russians are coming to get us. It also seems weird from the standpoint of, why is Bill Clinton getting $500,000, $500,000 for a speech from the Russians? Why? And did that $500,000 that Bill Clinton got, was all that money from all those sources that was connected with that particular deal? Giving that money to the Clinton Foundation have anything to do with Hillary Clinton okaying that deal? Now, even if you say Hillary Clinton morals are impeachable, certainly you understand that that's a problem, that they're getting paid in one particular capacity and they're doing favors that's directly affecting the people who are paying them to assist those people. That's just amazing to me. I mean, you're literally monetizing the State Department in the same way that she's complaining that Donald Trump is monetizing the presidency. These parties are problematic. Both. Neither one is functioning in your interests. In this particular case, we have a shady woman who was somewhat of a crook and who probably should have been locked up, if we're being honest. That's illegal behavior. That's immensely illegal behavior. They're going to have behind this fig leaf of, oh, it's a speech. You got a speech for $500,000 just so happened from the people who are trying to do the exact same deal. These parties are corrupt. These parties are infinitely corrupt. Nothing gets done dealing with the parties that we have now. I don't care about their slogans. I don't care. They put that woman up knowing that woman had one flaw after the next and that she was functioning in a legal capacity. You can complain about Donald Trump, and I agree with you, all of your complaints. I'm just making this point that anything that takes place needs to come from the left. Donald Trump is essentially representing his base, if that makes sense. He's representing the people who paid him and stood by him in that particular office. So yes, he's going to go as far right as he can possibly go. But I have no faith in Republicans to do anything positive. So they're not necessarily my interest. My interest becomes what takes place on the left, or entities or edifices that consider themselves the left. We don't have that in this country. Ultimately, we have two extraordinarily corrupt parties who are out for themselves. She was willing to sell us down the river. Donald Trump would do the exact same thing. I'll leave it at that. If you enjoy the content, feel free to share, rate, subscribe, and you can always support the work through Patreon. Thanks, guys.